Me and the opining. All friends to the show, my regulars for this part of the week. Bob Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton drug czar General Barry McCaffrey. He's also former chief of staff for the House Committee on Aging and also former communications director for both Congressman Rangel and Conyers of New York and Michigan, respectively. Bob, good to have you back.
It's a pleasure, Alan, and thanks for having me come a little bit early so that I can report live from the National Press Club.
We endeavor to accommodate. That is my life's goal here on Battle Line. In whatever way I can possibly accommodate the needs and proclivities of Bob Weiner, that is
you're so
the purpose
wonderful.
of this show. $1.2 trillion out of $40 trillion over the next decade, okay? That's a lousy 2.5%. Number one, what the hell was the problem with the super committee? And number two, what's also the problem in insisting that we have corresponding spending cuts to match whatever degree we wish to raise that debt ceiling? Bob Weiner.
Well, I'm going to take the view, Alan, that sequestration is not such a terrible thing when we spend more in defense than the next 10 countries combined. And when you have a party that won't raise its hand and say that they won't even agree to a 10-to-1 ratio on cuts to taxes, they won't even allow 1/10 of the money to come from taxes, when ExxonMobil and the oil companies made the highest profits in history this past year, it's really irrational when you had Reagan, Eisenhower, Bush 1, all of whom agreed to comprehensive packages, and this Republican Party will not. Alan, why don't you just go 999? I mean, we're talking ratio. We're talking ratio. 10-to-1 was a ratio.
Bob,
so
there is no way you could.
dollars.
Bob, how do you validate spending any more revenue? How do you validate raising more revenue when all that does is enable the very bad spending habits we've already seen?
That waste, fraud, and abuse argument, we did the same thing 15 years ago when I was a spokesman for the House Government Operations Committee, now called Government Reform. We had a report that said that there's $500 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse every year. That's the same thing we always say.
The records also suggest that lobbyists with personal connections to the White House enjoy the easiest access. Another example of him becoming the embodiment of the very thing he criticized, or is that unfair to point out, Bob Weiner?
No, it's a legitimate criticism, but it's the same as all the headlines during Bush about the connections to K Street and only hiring Republican people and giving them the access. The thing about lobbyists, though, don't give lobbyists by themselves a bad name. They are often the best issue experts if you sift and weed them out in terms of how they are giving you advice. You can't just take what they say and let them write the bills, which is what Cheney did in secret. He let them write the energy bills. You have to sift it out, and I say this as someone who worked in the White House and on Capitol Hill. I never took a meal from a lobbyist. I refused to. I made sure I paid my own when they came and wanted to visit. But absolutely, would I listen to what the American Automobile Association wanted to say, because they knew safety on the highways and they knew how to avoid deaths from big trucks. So lobbyists by themselves are not bad things.
Bob, wait a minute, though. You got to remember, I've been to your house. I saw that Renoir on your wall that said right underneath, "From your favorite lobbyist." So come on, Weiner.
Yeah, that, by the way, is a print that we spent a couple $100 of, and it's a duplication and a copy. So that's what you saw.
Actually, I swear to God, I didn't see anything there. I just made it up to have some fun, and you just responded.
Yeah, we had something. I don't even remember who it's by, but some famous French guy who actually signed a print.
Amy,
on our mantle.